The Global Chessboard. In a scarred square in Kyiv, beneath the shadow of a massive crater left by a recent Russian missile strike, two elderly men engage in a game of chess. The quiet click of the chess pieces is intermittently drowned out by a radio broadcasting the latest news: merchant ships in the Red Sea now under attack. These distant conflicts, reverberating through the radio waves, serve as a grim reminder to the players and the world. The war that began in Ukraine is no longer confined within its borders. It's a spark igniting a global tinderbox. The ongoing war in Ukraine, initially perceived as a regional conflict, has rapidly evolved into a sprawling global crisis. This expansion is not a series of isolated events, but a deliberate strategy by Russia to stretch the West's resources thin. By igniting conflicts in various corners of the globe, Russia aims to create a larger front, turning local disputes into chapters of a world war. Care to discuss who pays for all this? The war's tentacles extend far beyond Ukraine. In the Red Sea, the Houthi rebels, leveraging the chaos, attack civilian and Western military ships, disrupting vital maritime trade routes and escalating tensions. This conflict, though seemingly distant, is a direct consequence of the larger strategy to engage NATO and its allies in multiple fronts. In the Middle East, the Israeli-Gaza conflict, fueled by Hamas, has escalated dramatically. This is not a standalone regional conflict, but another front in the broader war, drawing in international attention and straining global diplomatic resources. Simultaneously, Iran bombs 3 of its neighboring countries, Syria, Iraq, and Pakistan, with missiles, and Pakistan fires back. Meanwhile, Venezuela's aggressive stance towards Guyana can no longer be seen in isolation. As an ally of Russia, its actions contribute to the strategic objective of dispersing Western focus and resources, adding a South American dimension to the conflict. The ripples of this war have also reached the Asia-Pacific region. China's posturing towards Taiwan and North Korea's potential resurgence in the Korean War are not mere regional power plays. They are integral parts of the larger strategy to create a multi-frontal conflict, challenging the West's ability to respond. These unfolding events, a crucial question emerges. Is this burgeoning global conflict solely a problem for Ukrainian citizens, or is it a shared burden? Are Europeans, Americans, and people worldwide inadvertently bearing the costs of this widespread war? The answer lies not just in the physical battlegrounds, but in the economic, political, and social repercussions felt across continents. Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, media has been talking about the danger of escalation to a new world war, WW3. It's time to change that talk. Today we have 2 coalitions supporting the war in Ukraine. On the Ukraine side, more than 50 countries actively support them with weapons, ammunition, training, and other contributions. On the Russia side, we see Iran and North Korea supplying weapons and ammunition, while the Hamas, the Houthi rebels, and less actively China provide different sorts of support. That's over 1/4 of the world's countries. And now, the fighting is no longer confined to Ukraine and Russia's border regions. The barbaric slaughter of civilians and hostage-taking by Hamas and the Houthis' attacks on civilian vessels were carefully coordinated with Russia's strategy, who trained Hamas's fighters in the use of drones. Iran's attacks on their neighbors also fits the same strategy. Multiply conflicts around the world to keep the Western alliance from concentrating resources on Ukraine. So, what else do we need to call this a world war? In this case, WW3. Let's remember WW2 also started with fighting in only one country, Poland, and then spread like a wildfire. More important than taxonomy, it's time to start discussing the consequences WW3 will have on our lives. Of course, I'm assuming WW3 will not get to the point of thermonuclear exchanges, because in that case we only need apply Keynes's famous answer to a question about the long term. It doesn't matter. In the long run, we're all dead. So, provided no one pushes the red button, who pays for all this? The chess players in Kyiv, surrounded by the tangible scars of conflict, represent a microcosm of a world unwittingly drawn into a complex, far-reaching war. As the game of chess advances move by move, so does the real-world conflict, leaving us to ponder the ripple effects that may touch every corner of the global crisis. As the game of chess in Kiev unfolds, each move echoes the strategic shifts occurring on the world stage. The war in Ukraine, initially a regional conflict, has rapidly expanded into a complex web of global crises. This section delves into the historical backdrop of these tensions and examines the current conflicts, illustrating how Russia's strategy to widen the war front is reshaping global geopolitics. The roots of the current global tension can be traced back to the post-Cold War era. The dissolution of the Soviet Union marked a shift in global power dynamics, leading to a unipolar world dominated by the West. However, the seeds of discontent were sown as NATO expanded eastward, encroaching on what Russia considered its sphere of influence. This set the stage for a resurgence of old rivalries and the emergence of new alliances, culminating in the current scenario. In Ukraine, what began as a conflict over territorial sovereignty has escalated into a proxy war between NATO and Russia.
The West's support for Ukraine is met with increasing hostility and military aggression from Russia, turning the region into a flashpoint for broader geopolitical tensions. The Israeli-Gaza conflict, reignited with alarming intensity, has drawn global attention.
Hamas's actions, seen as part of a larger strategy by Russia and its allies, exacerbate regional instability and serve as a distraction for the West, furthering the objective of a multi-frontal war. The Red Sea region, often overshadowed by more prominent conflict zones, plays a crucial role in global trade and energy supply. The recent attacks by Houthi rebels on shipping routes not only threaten regional stability, but also have far-reaching implications for international commerce and energy security. Venezuela's aggressive stance towards Guyana adds a new dimension to the conflict. As an ally of Russia, its actions are not merely regional posturing, but a part of the larger strategy to disperse Western focus, demonstrating the global nature of this war. The Asia-Pacific region is also a key arena in this unfolding drama. China's threats against Taiwan and North Korea's belligerence add to the complexity of the situation, challenging the West's strategic and diplomatic capabilities. The Dark Axis, comprising Russia, North Korea, Iran, Hamas, Houthi rebels, and to a lesser extent China, is bound by a common goal of countering Western influence. This coalition is characterized by shared interests in disrupting the current world order, challenging Western hegemony, and exploiting regional conflicts for broader strategic gains. Each member brings unique capabilities and regional influence, making this alliance a formidable opponent to the West. On the other side, the Western alliance, led by NATO and including countries like South Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, is united by democratic values, economic interdependencies, and a shared commitment to maintaining the current global order. This coalition leverages its economic strength, technological advancement, and diplomatic influence to counter the moves of the Dark Axis. As the chess players in Kiev ponder their next move, the world must recognize that the conflicts unfolding in Ukraine, the Red Sea, the Middle East, and the Asia-Pacific are not isolated. They are interwoven into the fabric of a larger global conflict, with each alliance driven by distinct but interlinked agendas. The commonalities within each bloc, whether it's a shared ideology, strategic interests, or geopolitical goals, are the glue holding these complex alliances together. This global chess game, with its myriad of players and strategies, raises a critical question. Can there be any true victor in a conflict that has such far-reaching and potentially devastating implications, unveiling the human cost? The intricate game of chess in Kiev, echoing the broader geopolitical game, has reached its climax. This section delves into the stark contrasts and contradictions within the Dark Axis alliance, focusing on their human rights violations, especially against women, LGBTQ+ communities, and other minorities. It also contrasts the 20th century rhetoric of self-determination promoted by Russia and China with their current imperialistic attitudes. Persecution against vulnerable groups. In the territories under the influence of the Dark Axis, especially in regions controlled by Russia, Iran, North Korea, and allies like the Houthi rebels and Hamas, there is a disturbing trend of human rights violations. Women and LGBTQ+ communities are particularly vulnerable, facing systemic persecution. In Iran or in Hamas, Hezbollah, or Houthi-controlled area, for example, women's rights are severely restricted and homosexuality is criminalized. Under Russian influence, LGBTQ+ rights have been eroded, with propaganda laws silencing any positive representation. These actions are not just human rights violations. They are strategic tools to suppress dissent and reinforce authoritarian control. Imperialistic attitudes versus historical support for self-determination. The 20th century witnessed Russia and China advocating for the self-determination of nations under Western imperial rule. Rightfully so. This stance, however, starkly contrasts with their current imperialistic ambitions. Russia's invasion and annexation of Ukrainian territories blatantly disregard the very principle of self-determination they once championed. Similarly, China's posture towards Taiwan and its actions in the South China Sea reflect a shift from supporting sovereignty to asserting dominance. Impact of these contradictions. These contradictions are not mere historical ironies. They have profound implications. The suppression of minorities and the imperialistic expansion by force reveal a fundamental disregard for the principles of sovereignty, human rights, and international law. The ongoing conflicts have significant economic and social impacts. The disruption of global trade routes, such as those in the Red Sea, affects the supply chains and economies worldwide. The military expenditures and economic sanctions related to these conflicts strain national budgets, redirecting funds from social welfare and development projects. This economic turmoil exacerbates social inequalities, hitting the most vulnerable populations the hardest. The nuclear threat. Amidst these conflicts, the specter of nuclear warfare looms large. The Dark Axis, particularly Russia and North Korea, have shown a willingness to use or threaten the use of nuclear weapons. This not only escalates the conflicts, but also brings the world perilously close to a nuclear catastrophe. The fear of nuclear escalation serves as a deterrent, but it also creates a precarious balance with the potential for catastrophic consequences. Both sides want this war. The game of chess in Kiev is more than a pastime. It's a reflection of the world's current state. As the chess players contemplate their next move, the world must confront the harsh realities of this global conflict. The question remains, can the international community navigate these contradictions and tensions to avert further escalation, or are we on the brink of a crisis beyond our control? The answer will determine not just the fate of nations involved, but the future of global peace and security, from battlefield to homefront. As the chess game in Kyiv progresses, each move echoes the wider implications of the war, extending beyond the immediate conflict zones. In this section, we explore how the reverberations of World War III, initiated in Ukraine and expanded by the Dark Axis, impact the daily lives of people globally, especially in Europe, the Americas, and beyond. Impact on average citizens. The war's effects permeate daily life in ways both overt and subtle. In Europe, the conflict's proximity has led to heightened security concerns and an influx of refugees, straining social and economic infrastructures. Energy prices have soared due to disrupted supply chains, directly impacting household budgets. Similarly, in the Americas and other regions, the ripple effects manifest in increased living costs, influenced by global market fluctuations and supply disruptions. Global economic trends. The economic impact of this global conflict is profound and multifaceted. The redirection of resources towards military spending and the imposition of sanctions have disrupted global trade, leading to inflation and scarcity of essential goods. Countries dependent on imports for energy and food are particularly vulnerable, facing significant challenges in sustaining their economies. Inflation and cost of living. Inflation, a direct consequence of disrupted supply chains and increased energy prices, affects the cost of living worldwide. Families find themselves struggling to afford basic necessities, leading to a decline in living standards and increasing the risk of poverty and social unrest. Job market and employment. The conflict has also impacted the job market. Industries reliant on international trade, such as manufacturing and logistics, face uncertainty, leading to job losses or reduced hours. Conversely, the defense industry may experience a surge in demand, but this growth is a double-edged sword, reflecting the deepening of global tensions. Mental health and social impact. The pervasive nature of the conflict affects mental health, with increased anxiety and stress becoming commonplace. The constant news of warfare and economic instability takes a toll, leading to a rise in mental health issues. Socially, the conflict exacerbates divisions, with increased polarization and nationalism in some regions. Warfare and military activities have a significant environmental impact. The destruction in conflict zones causes long-term ecological damage, while increased military operations contribute to pollution and carbon emissions, undermining global efforts to combat climate change. So much for the green transition and 1-degree limit. War now tops everything. So, guess who pays for all this? As the chess players in Kiev navigate their game amidst the echoes of war, it becomes evident that the repercussions of this global conflict are far-reaching. The impact on average citizens around the world is profound, affecting economic stability, social welfare, and mental health. The war, once confined to specific regions, now touches lives globally, reshaping the world in ways both seen and unseen. As we ponder the future, the pressing question remains: how can the global community mitigate these ripple effects and work towards a more stable and peaceful world? The answer to this will shape not only the present, but also the future of international relations and global in a fractured world. In the quiet square of Kiev, as the chess game nears its end, the players reflect a world seeking resolution amidst a sprawling global conflict. This section explores potential strategies for mitigating the widespread impact of World War III and suggests actions that individuals and communities can take in response. Mitigation strategies at the global level. Diplomacy must be at the forefront of resolving this multifaceted conflict. International bodies like the United Nations, along with influential nations, need to intensify efforts to broker peace talks and ceasefires. Economic sanctions, while a powerful tool, should be strategically applied to minimize harm to civilian populations. Cybersecurity becomes crucial in preventing cyber warfare from escalating conflicts. International agreements on cyber norms and collaborative defense mechanisms are necessary to safeguard against digital threats. Humanitarian aid is essential for regions most affected by the conflict. This aid should not only address immediate needs like food and shelter, but also focus on long-term solutions for displaced populations. Individual and collective actions. Individuals and communities, while seemingly powerless, play a vital role in influencing the course of events. Staying informed about the conflict and understanding its complexities helps in making informed decisions and advocating for peaceful resolutions. Grassroots movements and advocacy groups can lobby for diplomatic solutions and humanitarian efforts. These movements can also work towards bridging divides at the community level, promoting tolerance and understanding. Supporting humanitarian efforts, either through donations or volunteer work, provides direct assistance to those affected by the conflict. This support is crucial in alleviating the suffering of displaced and vulnerable populations. The role of education and awareness. Educational initiatives that promote a deeper understanding of the conflict's root causes, implications, and potential solutions are vital. Such initiatives can foster a more informed and engaged public, capable of holding governments accountable. Social media and digital platforms should be leveraged for awareness campaigns, spreading accurate information and countering misinformation, which often fuels conflict. Your voice matters. As the chess players in Kyiv pack away their board, the echoes of their game linger, mirroring the ongoing global conflict. This final section is not just a conclusion, but an invitation to reflect, engage, and contribute to the ongoing discourse about World War III and its impacts. This conflict, initially sparked in Ukraine, has rapidly morphed into a global crisis, reshaping geopolitics and affecting lives worldwide. From the economic turmoil and social upheaval to the threats against human rights and environmental consequences, the war's implications are deep and far-reaching. The strategic alliances and their conflicting ideologies have not only divided the world, but also highlighted the need for comprehensive and collaborative solutions. As we stand at this pivotal moment in history, it's crucial to recognize that the outcomes of this conflict will shape the future of international relations, global security, and world peace. The decisions made by world leaders, the actions of humanitarian organizations, and the voices of individuals like you will collectively determine the path forward. Now, more than ever, your voice matters. Engaging in informed discussions, staying abreast of the developments, and advocating for peace and stability are ways you can contribute to shaping a better future. Whether it's through social media, community forums, or personal conversations, every discussion adds a valuable perspective to the collective understanding of this global crisis. I invite you to share your thoughts and perspectives. How has this conflict impacted you or your community? What solutions do you envision for these complex issues? What role do you see for yourself in shaping a peaceful future? Your insights and opinions are not just welcome, they are essential in navigating these turbulent times. Let this be a space for constructive dialogue where diverse viewpoints are respected and considered. Whether you're sharing personal experiences, proposing solutions, or expressing concerns, your contribution is a step towards mutual understanding and finding common ground. The game of chess in Kyiv may have ended, but the real-world conflict continues to unfold. As we ponder the lessons from this metaphorical game, let's remember that the power to influence the course of this global crisis lies not just in the hands of world leaders, but also in ours. Together, through open dialogue and collaborative efforts, we can strive for a resolution that brings not just an end to the conflict, but also a new era of peace and stability.